We're about 3 minutes in. What do we have here? We have Edward Alex in the house. Idiot Greg, what's going on, buddy? Ooh, some news. What do we got here from Edward Alex? Uh, Interesting. All right, so we could have a situation of, I guess potentially, yeah, that could be a setup. Uh, Trying to play with market prices. It's definitely a possibility. Got 5 people in. Connected on Bluetooth. Hopefully connectivity doesn't lag too much on the audio. Hopefully we're in sync here. Yeah, Edward, that's a serious issue. So when it comes to Huawei, they're kind of like blackballed in terms of the wireless industry, at least the United States wireless industry. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely believable. Uh, could throw a wrench into the woodworks there. I think we'll know more next week for sure if there's something legitimately there to prevent the merger from proceeding through all the checks and questioning and things like that. So essentially, the live stream was supposed to take place this afternoon. Just couldn't get around to it. Wasn't able to free myself up for the time. So I thought, better late than never. At least we're on here and we're getting going. We got 4 people in the chat. Go ahead and say hello if you just hopped in. Yeah, the signatures. That's pretty much going to be a situation where they're presenting a document that's to be signed, needs a certain number of signatures in order for that particular aspect of the merger to be investigated. So in this case, SoftBank, the parent company of Sprint, which again, this does not directly implicate Sprint. If those signatures were to pile up and they were to accrue the correct amount, they would have to do a further investigation, a more complete and thorough investigation. And if they find anything substantial, it could potentially harm the progress of the merger. Even with the signatures, it doesn't mean the merger is going to stop. It's not going to be enough necessarily. Uh, Mergers seem to be the thing to do now. So, it's definitely not off the table just yet. All right, so what's the steps? Is DOJ ahead of what? FCC. So the FCC is not going to be involved, I think, from this point moving forward. They're not stopping this. They're not slowing it. They have nothing to do with this type of investigation. The DOJ, on the other hand, they still have not, okayed the merger from their end. Although they haven't, there's no signs to show that they're going to deny it or have any type of be an obstacle to it. I think what's happening here is this is just a case where the Senate is questioning what's going on. Um, if Congress sees that there needs to be a more thorough investigation on the Huawei thing, I mean, there could be a slowdown, but it's probably not gonna. I don't think it's gonna stop it. I don't know. I just don't think it will. We haven't really heard anything. I mean, everything that we have right now is just speculation. I mean, think about it. This merger was basically already approved. It was accepted and approved for further approval. I don't know. I don't know. Once they get those signatures, if they do an investigation, I don't know how long it would take. I mean, it could be a week. It could be 2 weeks. I mean, I don't know. I was talking to somebody about this actually, and I mean, I compare this to like what AT&T just completed with Time Warner, like what slowed that merger or that acquisition from happening, and that one was, again, like, there was no slowdowns, there were no concessions. Things are just happening fast with mergers. We'd probably get press release statements from Senate. John making another fancy video. Why not? All right, so let's see what we got for this week's topics. All right, so this week's topics covered in the video. We had a few videos this week. So we've got the Sprint changes to their unlimited data plans, prepaid side with Boost Mobile, T-Mobile's rollout of 600 megahertz in New York being completed, and anything from the podcast from Sunday. And that's pretty much it. So those were the topics from this week. One thing I meant to ask you guys, for anybody who's out there, maybe you watched, was anybody able to visit the Patreon page, check out what was going on that side? I do have a couple of videos up there that are available publicly. You don't have to be a patron, just go ahead and visit and you can watch. They were not put on YouTube, so definitely check those out. All right, so let's see what we got. Edward Alex, you think Sprint's new bundle is good? So I'm guessing you're referring to the 2 unlimited data plans. So what basically happened is they took their unlimited plan, which was a single unlimited plan, which was pretty good. It had 1080p resolution, it had tons of hotspot data. It was a pretty feature-packed plan. What they did was they stripped it down to a 480p resolution, a half a gig of hotspot data. They bare bones type of unlimited plan, and they made it cost the same as what the first initial and only data plan was. So they took a good data plan, made it a crappy data plan for the same amount of money, and then they created a second tier, which is more expensive, to make it the same plan that the last one was. So essentially, it's the old plan is the higher tier plan for $10 more per month. So not good. Not very happy to see that news, but it was coming. I mean, we kind of knew. I did a video on it, I don't know, maybe about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Sprint knew they had to raise pricing. They just weren't able to generate enough of the revenue to make sure that they were still investing in the network and improving and trying to make their network better. So the price increases were coming. and the promotions had to end. All right, so who's here in the chat? Who do we have? I know we got Edward Alex. Uh, I did say see, what was that? Idiot Greg was in the house to start. I haven't heard anything from him. Check the link. What you got there? I don't see any link. Any topics you guys want to go ask about or just speak on? Go ahead and so we can't put links inside the chat. That's cool. I don't know if you want to just go to my most recent video upload and just put it in there. Put it in as a comment. Throw me that link. I'll check it out. So what do we have here? Man, there's like nobody in here. This is terrible. I mean, it is late. I did want to do this earlier in the afternoon. I wasn't able to get to a situation where I could live stream today, so really, really unfortunate. I didn't intend for that to happen, but something came up and I couldn't get free. How's the audio? You guys able to hear me? These Bluetooth headphones are all I have. I can't even find my cable. My wired headphones, I mean, that's the best way to go, but let me know if the audio is good. For anybody out there that's been watching my videos, has the audio improved? I've been trying to use a better mic. I've been trying to make sure that the speed's good. Any feedback, on the video, let me know. Let me know the video quality. Edward, what'd you post to? Oh, okay, so they gave an upgraded status on the 600 megahertz rollout. I'm guessing they probably have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 major regions, areas probably in rural, very, isolated, desolate areas where there's not a lot of population. That's kind of been the focus area for the 600 megahertz. All right, cool. I'll check it out, Edward. Thank you for giving me that. I think I saw it. I think T-Mobile updated the list, so they put that out there. We get that pretty much every couple weeks. It's good that you're monitoring that. I check it out all the time. The thing about that list, though, is it'll be like they'll take one state and you'll see like 2 or 3 cities. And then there'll be a handful of other states where there are like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 states, and you'll see like 30 or 40 cities that received the 600 megahertz. And basically what they've done is they've taken a number of sites and they've provided the correct hardware to deploy the spectrum. And it's good that they have that, because in those areas, those people don't have good coverage. I mean, there are a couple of subs here on the channel that either have Metro or they have T-Mobile, and they tell me, they've seen range improvements, even though like they're in the same places. So whether they're at home or they're at work, they get those upgraded towers and the coverage is enhanced greatly. So they see better speeds, they see better coverage. Kansas. What part of Kansas? What city? Yeah, and for the rest of you guys out there on the channel, if you're watching live chat, let me know where you're located, what city, what state, what your carrier is. You're happy with the service, not so happy with it. I'd like to hear from you guys. I'm in the Cleveland area, Cleveland, Ohio. I have Verizon and AT&T service. I can't say too many good things about Sprint in this area, but AT&T is pretty good, good coverage. Not that fast, but it's pretty good coverage. Verizon's pretty fast out here, and the coverage is excellent. So that's kind of what I'm rolling with. Is it Salina or Salina, Kansas? North of Wichita. All right, you're in the biggest spot. So, carrier-wise, who's the best carrier in the region? Who's got the best coverage and who's got the best speeds in that region? Oh, Salina? Okay. Wait, so why isn't Kansas City in Kansas? And I was hoping to see some more folks in here. Just a few. So I know Edward's in the house. Who else is in here? State your name. Oh, so you did your own testing? All right, good. That's the best way to do it. Guess who was the fastest? I was shocked. Um, I don't know. Was T-Mobile the fastest? That's what I would guess. T-Mobile seems to have some really, really fast data, where the network has been well established in terms of like the amount of time. So I'd say in the Cleveland area, Cleveland, Ohio, the data network for the LTE from T-Mobile is really, really fast. It's excellent. I think the fact that they're one of the smaller carriers also helps. They don't have as much congestion. This is a big Verizon area. I've seen Verizon employees on towers working like crazy. They've been upgrading towers, upgrading sites, improving antenna directional orientations, changing antennas. These upgrades help a lot. Uh, the speeds for Verizon are very good here. AT&T's coverage is good, but the speeds aren't that great. Their upload is really good here, which is strange. Downloads, it leaves something to be desired, but the upload's really good. So actually, whenever I upload videos, I use my AT&T connection for that. Whenever I need high-speed download speeds, I go with my Verizon side. So I kind of tag team it that way. Thinking about trying T-Mobile again. It's been a while. I tried it a number of years ago. I'm hearing a lot of good things about them recently, but the way I remember it is T-Mobile connectivity was poor when it came to calling. I know they're doing all their calling over LTE now, so if their LTE network is as strong as it seems, then the calling should be just as good. But there is something that's going on between the LTE and the calling handoff. I don't know what it is, but hopefully they've worked it out. All right, somebody just jumped in. State your name. I mean, the chat's small. There's only a few of you. So whatever you guys want to start off with and get going with, questions, discussion topics, anybody that if is anybody out there excited about any of the new releases coming out here? We've got the Galaxy Note 9 coming out in just a few weeks. We've got news of the S10 already. Apple, they've got a handful of devices that are coming out. We're expecting 3 new phones. I don't know if you guys are into the flagship devices or not, but it's usually a pretty hot topic. So yeah, anybody, maybe you guys want to tell me what you're using. What's your smartphone and why? Why'd you pick it? Um, you guys know, for those of you that were in the live chat last week, I'm rocking the Google Pixel 2 XL and the Moto Z2 Play. So those are my two devices, and I don't know, they seem to be working really, really well. I like both of them. Edward, what are you using? I know you're on the T-Mobile network. What's your smartphone or smartphones? Oscar, ¿qué pasa, amigo? All right, so you got some of your results in from your testing, Edward. T-Mobile, yeah, yeah, it looks like they're. That's kind of what I expected. They've got a pretty fast network. Wonder why Sprint wasn't. Well, Verizon should be up there. I'm surprised they didn't perform better. It's interesting. Oscar, who's your provider? Who you using for service, man? And why? Used to have AT&T, paying $200. Man, how many lines you got? Better not tell me one line was $200 with AT&T. I know they're expensive. They're a very premium carrier. They charge quite a bit, but that's just outrageous. I mean, even if you were to get their best unlimited plan and then, put on like an iPhone 10 on payments, you should still be at about $150 a month. Hopefully, you've got like 3 lines or something. Edward, you got the T-Mobile 5 lines, a grandfather hotspot, unlimited data. No kidding. Are the speeds really, really good on that, or do they throttle and slow you down because you're grandfathered? Daughter's got a free line with Sprint. See, you can't go wrong, man. Free is free. It doesn't matter if it's Sprint or whatever. I mean, it's a free line of service. I mean, at some point, you're gonna have to get to use their network, right? I mean, free is free. All right, Federico. So you switched from AT&T to Cricket. 4 lines for 100. Joe Martinez, welcome to the live chat, man. Thank you for joining us. Um, Much appreciated. Glad you're here. Wow. So, Oscar, I'm guessing that you pretty much traded the features, the speeds, and all that just for the better value. Cricket does run on AT&T's network, so you're still getting the coverage, but you're just not getting the speeds. You're not getting the features. That's pretty much it. I can definitely dig that. You know, it's interesting. I've noticed the same thing, Edward. So with my AT&T sim, I use it in a mobile hotspot. There are certain times of the day where that network flies. I mean, it's fantastic. I use it for gaming too. There are times where it lags so bad I can't even stream a 480p resolution video. It's terrible. So like I see, download speeds of like 20 megs and I see download speeds of like 1, 2 and 3 megs, which you just can't do much with in terms of video. So yeah, I've seen the same thing. Uploads are always great though on that AT&T sim. I get great uploads, 20, 30, 40. It's excellent. Very, very good. That's actually how I upload all my videos and content is through my AT&T hotspot. It's so fast. It's very good. Joe's been a T-Mobile subscriber for 12 years, so you've been pretty loyal to them. Uh, have you been able to keep your same plans since the beginning, or have you, I don't know, kind of switched up to whatever promos they've been offering as you've gone along? Dallas Fort Worth. How's the service in Dallas and Fort Worth, Joe? I mean, it's a pretty big market, isn't it? Got quite a bit of people there. Dallas is a pretty big town. So what do they give you for that $10, Oscar? Do they give you like um, 20 gigs of hotspot, 30 gigs of hotspot? So what's your plan, Joe? What are you working with? 10 gigs of hotspot? That's not bad. I mean, that's serviceable. I'm guessing they probably slow you down to 3G after those original 10 gigs. Wow, that's really, really fast. Yeah, the Nighthawks are great. I'm thinking about upgrading mine. I have a pretty basic mobile hotspot, but if I get the Nighthawk, I know my speeds will improve greatly because you get the carrier aggregation and things like that, so it'll be a lot faster. Gregory, welcome, my friend. 6 lines, 160 bucks. Man, that is a good deal. Only on T-Mobile. It's a really good deal. Free HD streaming. See, I think, Joe, that's something a lot of people forget about. Like, you can get all of these different plans, and you can get all these new promos, but like video resolution, we've got phones that are like, you full HD is pretty standard, but some phones are quad HD and stuff like that. We like to be able to use the high video resolution. I feel bad for the people that are stuck with 480p on a newer device. If you have an older device and you don't care about video resolution, fine. But like, if you have an S8, S9, a new Galaxy, a newer iPhone, like you want to take advantage of that video resolution that phone can render. So, yeah, it's good that you actually have that. Flybox Rex, what up? Welcome to the show. Today's Friday night live show. It was supposed to be this afternoon, but something came up and I wasn't able to get on this afternoon, but I wanted to make sure I still got on for you guys, so we're here. It's good to have you guys in here, by the way. So how important is band 14 to speeds, or is this more of a coverage thing? Uh, I'm guessing it's probably for enhanced capacity, trying to get people an extra carrier, maybe. It probably aggregates to probably 2 carriers. Yeah, that's what I figured, Edward. I'm probably gonna get that Nighthawk. What's the cost on that? Last time I checked, I don't know, they were upwards of over $100. I don't know if it's new or used on eBay. 280. I thought they had used ones on eBay for like 120, 140. I'm guessing 280 is new, probably. Hey, Delaney. What up? Just popping in to say hey. So, Delaney, who's your service provider? Who you got? Service is about a 7 out of 10. That's not bad. I mean, when you're getting a good deal and the value's there, a really, really good price, the service doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. But if you're paying a premium, your expectations are higher, it's a different ballgame. There are some markets where I think Verizon and T-Mobile are very similar in their coverage and their performance, so a lot of people go T-Mobile to save the money. And the same thing with Sprint. There's some markets where it's really, really strong and the price is great. You take advantage of that. Hmm. I don't know. I buy everything through eBay. That's my way to go. I used to use Amazon quite a bit. I've gone away from Amazon once they started raising the prices on the Prime membership. I don't know. I know they just raised it again. So, man, I remember using Prime for students. It was like fantastic. I had everything purchased and shipped through Amazon. All right, Oscar. When's the last day the merge between T-Mobile and Sprint? I don't know. We're kind of playing the waiting game with the merger. There's some new developments that's been occurring uh, over the course of the last week. Yeah, a lot of people, Joe, a lot of people are pro merger. They're kind of rooting for it. It's usually T-Mobile customers that are rooting for the merger, Sprint customers as well. But like for people that don't have a dog in the fight and they're just basic consumers, they'd rather not see the merger happen. I think because for the sake of competition, but there's legitimate reason to believe that the competition will improve because T-Mobile and Sprint are so far behind. They kind of need the merger, and a lot of people are convinced that the merger will help actually. You know, I actually I used to think that with the spectrum availability that Sprint had, I thought that that was going to have to be some of the concessions that, you know, the FCC, the DOJ was going to make Sprint have to give up some of those things, but they haven't. They've pretty much they're going to proceed as it is. So I don't know, but that could change. So we'll just have to wait and see. You know, T-Mobile can do some great things with that spectrum. You know, they can accelerate the 5G build. They can cover up all their coverage gaps, probably eliminate most of the roaming agreements that they have with regional carriers and other things like that. Uh, they're just much better at spending with the network. I mean, they're accelerating the 600, 700 megahertz rollouts. So, yeah, I'd love to see what they could do with it. Second generation Nighthawks. Good to know. All right, so I got to make sure I get one of the newer ones. They kind of aren't they kind of large, those hotspots? They got some big antennas attached to them. Can't remember the last time I looked at an image of it. I just remember it being a little bit larger. I don't know if battery life matters to you either, Edward. Uh, you know, some of the like the battery life of some of these hotspots are just not good. Makes you want to just buy a secondary battery and keep it ready in case it dies on you. Anybody excited about any new up and coming phones here in the fall? We've got the Pixel devices, the Pixel 3 generation. We've got the Note 9 coming out real soon. We've got all the iPhones that are coming out 5 years from today. So let's see. 5 years from today, it'll be 2023. Fifth gen networks will be really, really fast. They'll be relatively available, especially in the larger cities, areas that have a lot of population. It'll be phenomenal. I mean, most people have transitioned from legacy devices to a lot of newer phones, so they'll be 5G ready. They'll have the processors that can actually utilize the fifth generation compatibility. So networks will be really fast. I mean, who knows? Maybe within 5 years, some people will have gigabit speed on their phones, which is pretty cool. And it's actually the best thing about fifth generation networks is not just the download speeds, which is awesome, but it's also the latency is going to be really, really, really low. So connectivity is going to be like instantaneous, snap of a finger, boom, everything renders very quickly. And just the capacity is going to be there. So whether there's 1,000 people on the tower or 2,000 people on the tower, it's going to be fast. Elon Musk. Yeah, he's pretty active. I could see him getting in on some of that. Definitely, for sure. Wife's gonna get the Note 9, Joe? All right, Joe. Well, if the wife is getting the Note 9, then what are you getting? Because if the wife's gonna upgrade, you gotta upgrade too, buddy. My wife just got a brand new car, so my turn next. I'm gonna get some real nice. Yeah, sub 10. Yeah, yeah, sub 10 numbers on the latency is really, really good. Man, I haven't seen sub 10 on latency probably ever. Definitely not on a wireless network. Um, I guess hardwired, I've seen it, but not wireless. I think the best I've ever seen on wireless when I was testing I think I was testing a Verizon SIM. I forget where I was testing it, but it was really, really, really low latency. I think it was like 19 or 29 or something like that. Which, by the way, anything under 40 for a wireless network is excellent. I don't see it often like that. All right, so Joe, your choices for 5G ready phones for next year. Listen up. This is what you got. The Samsung Galaxy S10 and a phone from ZTE. Those are the only two things we know for sure. Now, later in the year, I'm sure there'll be an LG that's 5G ready. I'm sure that I don't know what they'll be calling it. If they'll be calling it the iPhone 12, that will probably be 5G ready. They're always kind of behind a generation. Um, Probably the Note 10 will be 5G ready. So those will kind of be your choices. I'm sure there'll be some entry-level devices. Maybe not entry-level, but mid-rangers for sure, like a Motorola phone. You know, maybe like the Moto X. I don't know, it'd be like the X5 or, you know, their flagships. Unfortunately, I think the flagship phones will be the first one with that. Note 10 is what you're waiting for. I think the Note 10 is going to be a big-time device. Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I mean, they kind of skipped notes. The Note 6 was never released. The Note 7 exploded and was basically a ticking time bomb because of the heating issues. So I think that the 10th generation, I guess, is probably going to be making a lot of noise back there, ain't you?
Sorry.
Disrupting my live stream. Yeah, the Note 10 should be a great device. It's going to be expensive. I would guess that the Note 10 is probably going to be something like $1,100, $1,200. That's my wife leaving. Should have left a long time ago. She knew I was live streaming tonight. Stock memory, stock RAM. All right, so the Note 10. I don't know, maybe somebody will be watching this in like a year and a half or something like that, and they'll be watching this and they'll hear my prediction. The Note 10. I was going to go even higher than that, Joe. Note 10, I'm going 10 gigs of RAM. 10 gigs of RAM. And I don't know, let's get crazy. Let's go with a full terabyte of onboard storage. 1 full terabyte. Expandable storage not required. I mean, it'll have it probably, but you won't need it. I mean, why not, right? It's the Note 10. Let's put 10 of everything. It would be great. Now, Android has evolved quite a bit. Android obviously has become a really, really good operating system. It's not what it was, say, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. It has become better with RAM efficiency when it comes to like multitasking, but running games and RAM intensive apps it struggled with, so having the extra RAM is going to help. Whether it's 8 or 10 gigs, Android can always use more RAM. It's not like Apple, iOS, you know, 3 gigs of RAM and you're flying on iOS. 4 gigs of RAM and you're running, you know, 4 cameras on that device. Edward, nice, man. I don't think, can this put out the fire of the Note 7? Oh, and by the way, I have a friend who still has a Samsung Galaxy Note 7. He's got it sitting in a box in his drawer. I've seen it. He's just got it sitting there. And they sent him a letter to send it back, and he hasn't. They even sent him a box for him to just put it in there. It's like a bomb-proof box. It's got the special wrapping. It's got like a box within a box. And they said, you know, send it back. We'll send you the $800, $900, whatever it is. And he refuses. He's keeping it. Man, I remember the Note 7 fiasco. You know, I don't know. There were like rumors of precautionary measures being taken at airports. They like basically shouted out the Note 7. You know, if you bring a Samsung Galaxy Note 7 onto this airport, it's a felony. It's like a terrorism act. It was pretty crazy. Nuts. Hold on one second, guys. All right, we're back. You know what's crazy about the Note issue, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7? The Note 7, it was actually a really, really good phone. The single problem was with the battery. The battery, it wasn't that it was too big. It was actually, it didn't have enough space to keep cool. The problem was it couldn't dissipate heat. So it was actually a design flaw. They could have kept the battery, same size and everything, and just put like a heat sink or a heat pipe to help dissipate some of the heat. It was just cooking. Um, from what I understand, that was pretty much a solution that they could have used. And actually, I don't know if you guys heard about this. I think I reported this like, man, this is one of my earliest videos, like a year and a half ago. When they took back all those Note 7s, they refurbished them, remanufactured them, and people have them all over, I guess, like two or three countries. I think it's Vietnam and India, and I don't know, it's like Indonesia. It's like three Asian nations, and those people have those devices. They're out there. They're in the wild. People are using them. Yeah, it's frustrating. You like a blue variant, you like a fuchsia variant, the coral, and AT&T's got this variant, and Verizon's only got these two. T-Mobile's got this magenta one. They should all be available to everybody. It's ridiculous. And actually, you know, I used to think that you could just get a black phone, right? And then just get a case, whatever you want. But some people don't like cases. And what I've learned is that these phones have become so attractive with their designs, people want to show them off. And they don't want to have to um, cover up their phones with large hefty cases. They want to keep that premium feel and, you know, they enjoy it that way. Yeah. See, the problem is Apple's the only company that is respected by the carriers. They're the only ones that call their own shots. All other manufacturers feel compelled to have to listen to carriers. It's very frustrating. All right, let's catch up in the live chat here. Wow. That's a crazy story, Edward. So Edward's saying that there was a guy, uh, he had a Note 7, left it inside of his Maserati. It's a nice car, man. Caught on fire, left it on the dash. Ooh. Yeah, see, for one thing, cars pack heat because windows are closed. Lots of sunlight coming in. The temperature inside of a car, I mean, I'm sure, especially if it's a dark interior, could probably exceed 140 degrees easily. Uh, Batteries can't handle that type of heat. They really can't. It doesn't matter what type of battery. It doesn't have to be even a Note 7. I've seen an iPhone 5S battery explode sitting in a car, and it popped the screen off. The display completely popped off. The seal broke. The glue that holds the display onto the frame, you know, all of that became undone. It was pretty crazy, and all you have is this huge swollen battery, which the iPhone 5S battery was tiny, but when it, you know, swelled up and did that, I mean, it was huge. It was enormous. It was just like this. It looked like a little black bag. It was a horrible experience. I had to repair the screen and replace the battery after that happened. And for those of you guys out there that don't know, I'm actually an iPhone repair specialist. I've been fixing and repairing iPhones for years. I've got tons of experience, you know, fixing displays and batteries and charging ports and headphone jacks and all the, you know, speakers and all that. So I've done quite a bit of work on iPhones. All right, Oscar, have a good night, my friend. Thank you for stopping by. All right, so Joe, you're mentioning the 600 megahertz rollout. I'm not sure how much of it is actually going to be done. Um, the 600 megahertz rollout is kind of a strategic rollout. They're putting it in places where coverage is really, really sparse. So it's not going to be everywhere. Uh, it's going to be more important to places where the actual macro sites, the larger cellular sites, are few and far in between. Uh, but yeah, once it becomes, at a large scale rollout, we're probably expecting in the next couple of years. I'd say by 2020, most of the markets that should have it will have it. All right, Edward. So the iPhone lineup, we've got three that are coming up. One, two, three. All right, so the three iPhones, you're going to have the successor to the iPhone 10, which it's probably not going to be called the iPhone 10. The iPhone 10 was actually a like a one model type deal because it was like the anniversary, the 10-year anniversary. But we are going to see a successor to it, so maybe they'll call it the iPhone 11 or something like that. It it's gonna be nice. It'll be very similar to it. It'll have the same design language. I think they're gonna probably keep the dual camera setup on the back. I don't see them, doing three cameras. I mean, it's possible, but I think there's gonna be a phone actually one tier above the iPhone 10 successor, and I think it's gonna be like a Pro variant. And I'm hearing that one's gonna have three cameras on the back of the device. I don't know if it's gonna have two cameras on the front, like for selfies and HDR and stuff like that, but I also hear that one of the devices is going to be an LCD model. And you know what's interesting is so the technology for the bezel-less displays, where the displays are pushed all the way to the edge, it was impossible to do with an LCD, which is why the iPhone 10 actually has an OLED panel. I think there's a Japanese company that's working with Apple to perfect the design where you can actually do a bezel-less design with an LCD, and by them having that technology, they can keep the cost down because they're using an LCD panel. There's pros and cons to both display technologies. OLEDs have great saturation. OLEDs look awesome at night because they show true black because the pixels are off. They're really really good, but they're subject to burn-in much sooner and much more frequently than say LCDs. And LCDs usually get brighter, with the exception of Samsung, whose OLED panels are truly amazing. LCD is the way to go if you want a brighter and more true to life display. But that's kind of what we got for the iPhones. There's going to be they're calling it a budget iPhone. It's not a budget. It's going to be like $700. What's budget about 700? Like, has it gotten to the point now where a budget phone is $700? Like, their flagship used to be 649. I remember like there was generations of iPhones that were 499 and 599. We're going back, obviously, like the iPhone 3G, the iPhone 4 and 4S and stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for. I don't really expect there to be too much unexpected from the iPhones that are coming out. I think the successor to the iPhone 10 is expected. A Pro model iPhone is kind of cool, but it's going to be expensive. I'm thinking like 1100, 1200. It's probably going to have 256 gigs of storage, so it's going to be expensive. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm hearing 4 gigs of RAM on that model too, and that's probably why if you've got 4 gigs of RAM in an iOS device, it probably has those three cameras, right? You need the extra RAM to push those sensors. Yeah, Joe, the colors on the budget iPhone sounds interesting. Now, if the phone's going to be plastic, which I doubt it, that's a losing situation because then it's like what we saw with the iPhone 5C. It was a horrible, horrible experiment. Uh, Apple's a premium company. They want to sell their phones at a very high price tag. So, you're not giving people plastic phones. But the color is kind of intriguing. I heard they got orange in the pipeline, red. The red usually looks pretty cool. You guys know the red edition of the iPhones. Those are nice. Yeah, they're all and actually, Joe, they're all gonna have the bezel-less design. They're trying to go away from those thick, chunky bezels, make it look more modern. I think that's what iPhone's design language is going to be moving forward, at least for the next few years. Who knows what they could do, but the notch is here to stay, at least for the next couple generations, I think. Yes, the multicolor, Joe, is the LCD model. Yep. You know, Edward, a lot of people are predicting that it's going to sell the best because it's considered a mid-range. But let me tell you something. If the iPhone budget phone is $700, it's not really budget. But yeah, it's probably going to sell more than like the iPhone 11, which might be 900 or 1,000, and then whatever this new premium iPhone is going to sell for 11 or 1,200 bucks. I mean, there's just less people that are willing to spend that type of money on that type of phone. It's just absurd. Me personally, even if I had the money to spend on it, I would not buy a $1,300 smartphone. There's just no reason for it. That's crazy and outlandish. All right, Joe's making a prediction. He said by the end of the year, we should know how the T-Mobile merger is going to go. Do I agree? Um, I think we're going to start to get more of a sense of what are the obstacles. We don't really know right now if anything's going to get in the way of the merger. We just we just don't know, but like by the end of August we're going to know much more. By the end of October, November, we're going to know a lot more. So yeah, yeah, by the end of this year we'll definitely know a lot more. Because by the spring, I mean, things will be in place. The wheels are going to start turning on this merger. If you start to see T-Mobile is positioning themselves for the merger from a technology standpoint, then that's pretty much all but official. Uh, we don't even have to get official word from T-Mobile. We don't have to get official word, from Sprint. Once we see the integration of the network starting to happen, then it's a done deal. So as soon as I see that, I'll know it's official. And like you think about how the networks are going to be integrated. I don't know. I don't know. I think the networks being integrated is going to be a little bit complicated. Um, it's going to be tough. I mean, Sprint's got tons and tons of spectrum that's very valuable. T-Mobile's got to figure out a way to get that spectrum into use really quickly. Hey, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the kind words. Thanks for stopping by to the chat. I appreciate it, man. All right, Edward. Man, if I'm going to be totally honest with you, I do not think that the new generation of iPhones will be compatible with 600 megahertz band 71 for T-Mobile. I don't think they're going to be ready. I don't know. From what I understand, Apple contracts its processors and SoCs, which in the years past they've always been Intel. They've contracted them over a year in advance. If that's the case, the technology won't be there because 600 megahertz rollout hasn't become prominent until recently. So the development for the new generation of iPhones started last year in 2017. And now we're just starting to see band 71 rollout being very substantial. So I don't think they're going to be 600 megahertz band 71 compatible, which is unfortunate because T-Mobile sells a ton of iPhones. You'd think, why wouldn't Apple want to make their phones compatible with that band? I mean, it's actually really foolish. And trust me, T-Mobile wants the iPhone to be band 71 compatible, but it doesn't mean anything. Apple, they kind of they do their own thing. Do all regions like I was asking somebody, they have T-Mobile and I was asking them about their coverage and stuff. And like even though band 71, the 600 megahertz spectrum is going to be helping a lot of people, there are certain people that live in certain places where they don't need band 71. So if you don't travel, if you don't live in a rural area, I mean, and if your market doesn't even have it, then why would you be so inclined to want to get a phone that's band 71 capable? You'll just wait, you don't have to necessarily upgrade just to get that band. Yeah, it would be bad news for T-Mobile, Edward, for sure. The problem is the rollout is in phases. It wasn't like, okay, we're gonna get all the hardware implemented at all the sites, and then we're gonna turn on a switch, and boom, everybody's got band 71. it's been very systematic and strategic where the band 71 is being installed and where it's being turned on. So that's really the issue, and that's why they haven't had like devices just all of a sudden rush with the compatibility. I think currently the cheapest phone that's band 71 capable is like an LG model. I don't know if it's the K20 or something like that. It's like a $200 phone or a $250 phone. It's got band 71 capabilities to it. I don't know if anybody, if you really need the band 71, if you really need the 600 megahertz with T-Mobile and your market has it, but your current phone doesn't have it, that LG is probably good enough to get you through it. I mean, it's got a Snapdragon 4 series processor, which are pretty good. I mean, it's nothing high end. The phone probably has a 720p resolution display. But if the coverage is what you need the LTE, then that's a good way to go. At least in terms of cost. It's funny, an LG K20 2018 model, which probably costs 250 bucks, has better compatibility for T-Mobile's coverage than this next generation of iPhones will probably have. That's kind of embarrassing. Anybody interested in the new generation Pixel devices? Or am I the only Pixel fanatic here? I feel like I might be. Uh, from what I understand, like I try to gauge the climate within the chat, within the subscribers, what phones they've got. A lot of people out there have Samsung phones, a lot of Galaxy devices out there. Anybody got their S8, S8 Plus, S9, S9 Plus, Note 8? Anybody have these devices? I mean, those run pretty good on the T-Mobile network. They're pretty fast. You've got the full band compatibilities there. Those are really good. For those of you that are in the chat, has anybody visited my Patreon page, the Mobile Tech Patreon? So what I'm doing, guys, is I've got my secondary phone. This is how I actually read the script. I don't really look at the device from where I'm recording. So if you see me, looking down, looking up, looking down, looking up, what I'm doing is I'm reading the chat, and I try to, make contact back with the recording camera. Well, let me ask you this, Edward. How many people, or should I say just, percentage-wise, how many people like you and me and the rest of the subscribers here on the channel actually think about their devices more than just, hey, it's on, I have reception, I have LTE, and I can use my data? Like, they don't know what band 71 is. They don't know what bands are. They don't know what spectrum is. They have no clue what that means, right? So, and I mean, what do people really care about when they have iPhones? They care about iMessage. They care about, iOS specific applications. You know what I mean? Like FaceTime and stuff like that. Most people don't care about Band 71 or even have any idea or recollection of what it means, right? So, but there's probably a minority, a small percentage of people that do care because their area does have Band 71 coverage and they know that their next device needs to have it so that they could have enhanced coverage. But it's a small percentage. We're talking what? 10, 15%? What would you estimate? How many people really care about it on that level? But it is frustrating to know that Apple is lagging, man. They've always lagged with that. Yeah, yep. Edward, your new nickname is Martian. Because when you talk to people about bands, they have no idea what you're talking about. They think rubber bands for whatever reason. They have no clue. Uh, I mean, if you have conversations with people like general consumers, just like regular old people, they probably know who their carrier is, obviously, especially if they pay a bill. But like, they'll be like, "Oh, my coverage is good," or "Yeah, it's good enough," or "You know what, my coverage kind of stinks." That's all they really could tell you. They don't have any technical understanding of what's going on with their network. I mean, I dare you to use the phrase carrier aggregation to the average customer. Go into a T-Mobile store and ask about carrier aggregation. Just survey 5 people and tell me what you hear. Band 71, they have no clue. They're just not into it on that level. They're not as informed because they don't feel that it's, really important to them. I mean, I could tell you, I can count 10 times where I've gone into a Verizon store or an AT&T store, and I've known more about their network than they do. And it's just from reading and doing research and being intrigued by what's been going on in the network side. I want to be informed, and I want to make sure I'm making good decisions with where I'm spending my money. So that's kind of what the purpose of that is. And some people just really don't care. Hey, my phone works, it turns on, I've got a network, I can upload my Snapchat, I can look at my Twitter timeline, it's always connected. That's all they care about. What you and I are doing now, I mean, this is this is much too much of overkill to them. They would never take the time to do any type of research on that level. I wonder if there's any subscribers out there, people that watch my videos. I wonder how much people have learned in the time that they've been subscribed to my videos and from asking and whatnot. I'd love to hear like somebody say, "Hey, I've learned a lot from your channel, just from keeping up with your videos and stuff like that." That's always been my intention. My intention on the channel was to inform people, make them much more informed in terms of being a smart and educated consumer, so they can make better decisions in their purchases. Whether it's promotions or whether it's, network operations or enhancements. And also, I like to be in the know. Like when somebody comes on into the comment section and says, "Hey, in this market, here's what's going on. Hey, in this market, here's what's going on." I like to know. I like to keep up on that. Landon, what's up, buddy? Good to see you here in the live chat. Welcome, man. For those of you that have been following my channel for a while, Landon's been a big contributor. I've seen him in the comment sections over and over again, time and time again. So thanks for your contributions, Landon. Much appreciated, man. Senor Gonzalez, welcome, my friend. Last I remember, Landon, I think you had AT&T and you were in Puerto Rico. Is that right? Love Tech 47. Good evening. I don't want to play a spoiler here, but I do have a video coming up on that exact topic, Edward. So I don't want to say too much. It's a very interesting topic. When it comes to long-term health effects from 5G, there could be some legitimate issues there. So, by trade, I am a science educator. I'm a science teacher. And one of the things that you can't escape when you teach science is the scientific method. And one of the things that science revolves around is research and trial and error, recording results, testing over and over again, repeating them over and over and over and over again until you find results that are non-falsifiable. I will say this about that. Um, when it comes to the testing of the networks, the 5G networks and health, they've got to test this over a long period of time. You can't run 5G health risk over a year. You can't do it over 2 years. It's the type of thing that we may not know anything about the health risk until maybe 5, 6, or 7 years down the line. All right, so, you know, I don't know, but I do have the intention of making a video on the health risks of 5G networks because the frequencies are much different than 4G LTE and 3G technologies and 2G and Edge and all that stuff. So I'll definitely cover that. I think you guys are going to like that video. It's a very interesting topic. So Landon, you had AT&T and now you switched to T-Mobile. How's the experience been, man? Are you glad that you made the switch? Have you seen, a coverage drop off or enhancement? Did you switch because of value? Just, I don't know. Tell me how it's been. Edward Alex, bro, you gonna leave me like that? What? Did I leave you? Where'd I go? All right, so we're about an hour into the live chat, in the live stream. It's going pretty good. I was hoping to get more people in here, but I think it just might be the timing. All right, Love Tech. So you're on T-Mobile also. Subpar services. All right, so with T-Mobile, I feel like sometimes part of the service is really good, and then part of the service kind of lags behind. So in a lot of cases, I hear that T-Mobile speeds are excellent, and sometimes it's the coverage. You know, it's the LTE is really good when you have it, but when you don't have the LTE, it's obviously not available. Or sometimes I hear people just talk about the coverage um, in terms of calling. So like connectivity to calls are poor and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't know if you don't mind sharing, Love Tech, what's been the issue with T-Mobile from where you're at, and maybe tell me what part of the, you know, what region you live in and spend the most time in with your service. So, Edward, the concept behind the video is I'm going to basically just run through everything we know in terms of concerns about fifth generation networks and their frequencies and what those types of waves do to our bodies. Now, the only thing I can tell you is we don't have any definitive evidence to prove that it's going to be damaging to our bodies other than that it's similar to what the concerns were in 4G LTE. People have been saying that the microwaves coming from, or the radio waves coming from our cell phones causes radiation. Of course it does. The transmission of Bluetooth causes radiation to be formed. It doesn't mean it's going to make you sick, and it doesn't mean it's going to be substantial. The problem is we just don't have enough evidence to prove or disprove something yet. It takes time to do the research and study things, you know, over a long duration of time. So any conclusions that are being made now are completely speculation. We just don't have any solid data yet, but in the video I'll cover all the things that we consider to be risk factors. So I'll cover that topic. All right. We have somebody who just joined the chat, Breon Bowser. What's up, buddy? Good to have you in the chat. Do you see HTC and LG staying in the smartphone game much longer? Yes, I do. LG is going to be fine. LG has a very, very good hold on the TV market. LG makes a ton of different consumer electronics. LG is going nowhere. They're going to be fine. The smartphone game, I mean, they're dumping money into the smartphones, they're not making it, so I could see the concern there. HTC, on the other hand, when it comes to smartphones, they are through. HTC is done. They already sold all their design talent. They all went to Google, so they've taken those people from the HTC smartphone design team. They've gone over to Google, and they're basically designing Google phones now. And even Foxconn is going to be building the phones for HTC. Or for the Google phones will be made by Foxconn. HTC is pretty much done, which is really sad. They used to make awesome phones. I don't know about the new ones. I haven't had an HTC since the One M7, which was a great device. In fact, if you guys didn't know, the HTC One M7 is the phone that the Apple iPhone 6 is built off of. They copied that design. So to show you how far HTC has fallen, it's really, really sad. But LG is probably going to continue to make smartphones, and they make really good ones. The LG V30 is a great phone. The follow-up will be really good. The LG G7 is a good phone. They'll probably hang around for a while longer. I don't see why not. Yeah, Landon, the value with T-Mobile is excellent. You're not getting value with AT&T. Unless you have like an employee line or something like that, AT&T has no value. That's for sure. You're getting drop calls? Uh-huh. I see that all the time. Love Tech. Okay, so Love Tech, you're in Brunswick. I know where Brunswick is. So Brunswick is about 30, yeah, I'd say about 30 miles from me, maybe about 20, 25 miles. I'm in the North Olmsted Falls area. So, yeah, we're not too far. We're actually neighbors. It's good to see somebody close by. Now, what's interesting, Love Tech, is if you have T-Mobile, I don't know what smartphone you have. but 600 megahertz rollout's going to help an area like Brunswick a lot. For the most part, I think the only two full coverage carriers in like Brunswick, Medina is AT&T and Verizon. I hear Sprint's really bad out there, and T-Mobile struggles with coverage and connectivity of calls. So I've heard those same complaints. Joe says that we're probably not going to see true 5G speeds until 2024. Uh, I don't think we'll have to wait that long. I think it's just going to be market to market. So, like, take for example, each company's 5G networks that are going to be deployed here next year. They're going to start with little pockets around the nation. They're going to start with big cities. Let's say that you are downtown. I don't know, just name any market that gets the first rollout of 5G, right? And you're by a 5G site, right? So 5G compatible, you have a 5G device. There's not going to be a lot of congestion because the 5G compatibility there, these devices are going to be few and far in between. Not many people are going to have it. So there's not going to be congestion. So whatever that tower can do, you're going to be able to take advantage of. And there's just not a lot of people pulling, right? There's not a lot of people taking up bandwidth. So imagine it's late. There's not a lot of people on the tower. I mean, you're going to fly, right? So it'll be fast. I bet you there'll be some sites, and we'll get some speed tests and some screenshots of it from people. We'll see, 800 megabits per second, 900 megabits per second for sure. I think some people will get that. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see it on a large scale, but I think sometimes, some people will be able to achieve those speeds. The latency is going to be low, which is great. I can't wait to see that. Like, to me, the speeds are great, but the latency is really important. I'm really sick of the high latency. It really does affect browser experience, video and picture rendering. It's nice having instantaneous connectivity. I, Edward, I don't know when Cleveland's going to get 5G. They're not on the initial list from any of the carriers, but Verizon is really strong here, and Verizon's the type of carrier that makes a lot of moves without announcing too much. So if the first markets that are receiving 5G are going to be in 2019, Cleveland's the type of area that would probably see it in like 2020, maybe late 2020, 2021. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted here on the channel. I can't wait to get my hands on a device that actually has 5G compatibility, but I also need a network market, where they have that. So what's the point of me upgrading and then the 5G network is not available where I live? So don't rush for me to spend $1,000 on a phone, right, to upgrade just to get coverage that I can't get. It's not in my area. I just read the second part, Edward, to that. That's funny. The poncho. Nice. You know what, Love Tech? So I used to buy unlocked phones too. Well, I mean, I still buy unlocked phones, but the problem with unlocked phones is it restricts you to GSM, which is not really that big of a deal unless the best provider or ISP in your area is Verizon. Then a GSM only phone, you're kind of, SOL. So I still buy unlocked phones, but I buy unlocked phones that have all capabilities. So Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile compatibility. So like the Google Pixel, the Motorola phones, they're pretty much compatible with all carriers. That's what I roll with. All right, Breon, how do you feel about these unlimited plans, and what do you feel is the end game for each carrier? Some just don't make sense to me. Unlimited plans actually don't make sense. They call them unlimited plans only to put limitations on pretty much everything. Let's go through all the limitations of the unlimited plans. Video resolution limitation, audio streaming restrictions, hotspot data restrictions, soft cap data restrictions, 22, 23 gigabytes, 50, 75. There's so many restrictions to unlimited plans. It's almost more accurate to say which plans are less limited are the better plans. So the end game, I think, is going to be probably with movement to fifth generation networks. That's going to become the premium tier pricing, I think. And then 4G LTE is going to become just an afterthought. Like nobody's going to talk about 4G LTE. It's going to be, here's our LTE network with 5G capabilities. That's kind of going to be the end game. I don't know. I think at some point, most of the restrictions will be lifted. It's just not going to be a concern. But I think 5G is going to become kind of the premium offering, and I think that's kind of the end game. You know what, Landon? You're probably right. 2030 for Puerto Rico. Unfortunately, investment in a country like that. Well, here's why. So you got to think, what is the population of users in Puerto Rico? Because if they're investing infrastructure into a country or a state or an area of the world, if there's not a lot of people to support, the investment isn't going to pay off for many, many years. This is why a lot of service providers don't offer support in places like Alaska. There's not a lot of people for the dividends to pay off. So they're not trying to invest in the infrastructure. So yeah, by 2030 sounds about right. So Landon, you are grandfathered into Simple Choice Unlimited. So what's the price on that? What's your grandfathered pricing? Joe Martinez, absolutely. To get 5G networks, I think they're going to put a premium on it. I think it's going to be expensive. Um, so, like, take for example Verizon. Verizon has, I think, a $95 above unlimited. That's their premium unlimited plan. Take that and slap on an additional fee for 5G compatibility to certain networks. We're probably talking somewhere between like a 20 to 30% increase in your bill just to have that compatibility to be able to run 5G. It's definitely not worth it from initial rollout. Um, Man, it's a lot of money. So you're talking to have 5G use, you're going to be paying $120, uh, for one line. That's crazy. It's a lot of money. So that would be my prediction. It's going to be set up something like that. Oh, interesting. Okay, so me and Edward were speaking earlier about the Nighthawk mobile hotspot that AT&T has. Um, and he's saying that it is category 16. So those are really, really good speeds. Category 16 is excellent. Uh, I think it's the best availability right now for the category LTE. So I think you're right there. Uh, Man, so you were saying it's about 200 bucks, huh? Used. All right, Landon. So your plan, you're at $100 for the first two lines. So 50 a line for the first two lines, and everything's 40 after that. Okay. All right, so from Breon, something interesting. Do you see Apple doing something similar to Google Fi? If so, at what cost? I don't think Apple's going to get into any type of ISP. The problem with Apple getting in as an ISP is it would kind of go against everything that they stand for in terms of their business model. They're a hardware company, they're an ecosystem company, they are not truly a connectivity company. Uh, ISP takes a lot of infrastructure investment. If you're saying that, maybe they'd be an MVNO, because like Project Fi, uh, I just don't see that happening. Google's not even really profitable when it comes to being a service provider. They just run Project Fi just to do it, and they're just trying to push their Google devices. They're trying to sell their Pixels, and they were trying to sell their Nexus phones. That's why they did that. So I don't see Apple trying to get into being a smartphone provider or a smartphone service provider. All right, so I'm going to catch up in the chat a little bit. Love Tech 47. You've got T-Mobile. Uh, go with unlocked devices. Asus, they make some good phones. They're good mid-range phones. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get a high-performing device. Ooh, a OnePlus 6. That's a good phone. Uh, Love Tech, what do you think about that OnePlus 6? Are you digging it so far? You probably had it for a little bit. All right, so what do we have here? All right, so the network in Australia is called Testra. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Gigabit speeds. Yeah, they do have some really, really good speeds. I've seen some screenshots of some speeds from there. Really, really good. Uh, Unfortunately, there's parts of Australia that actually don't have coverage. So it's nice that they have fast speeds, but if you don't have coverage, then what do those speeds even really mean? Yeah, the everything I see about the Nighthawk mobile hotspot, I only see positive reviews. I'm probably gonna upgrade. I'm probably gonna get one. The mobile hotspot that I'm using right now is real basic. Um, I don't know. It's not that great when it comes to range. The speeds aren't really that great. I'm gonna try something else for sure. 800. Okay. Uh, LoveTech 47 giving us some specs. What is that? The OnePlus 6? Sounds like it to me. Man, 8 gigs of RAM. Let me tell you guys something, man. I bought a computer, I don't know, about 6 years ago, and it had 8 gigs of RAM. And that thing was awesome at multitasking and running games. A smartphone has 8 gigs of RAM. That is crazy. Gaming computers, up until just like a handful of years ago, people were running 8 gigs of RAM to run all types of gaming on their computers. So, like, it's incredible to know that there's smartphones out there with 8 gigs of RAM. That's nuts. So, my Pixel 2 XL has 4 gigs of RAM, and it doesn't slow up at all when I multitask. Maybe it doesn't hold as many apps as I'd like it to, but it doesn't really have problems running or processing anything. So, man, 8 gigs of RAM is crazy. Now, the Snapdragon 845 processor, that thing is fantastic. It's super snappy, it's more battery efficient. That's a pretty good chipset. I don't know if you guys heard the Snapdragon 845. I think it's actually being used in some computers, the always on computers, always connected computers. So, yeah, people think really highly of the Snapdragon 845. If you get a phone with a Snapdragon 845, you're future proof for a few years, man. That phone's gonna run great. Oh, so Edward, you're saying if I'm gonna purchase my Nighthawk on eBay, I gotta make sure it's a second generation Nighthawk, and it's not an Australian model, because it won't work here. I'm guessing it's gonna be a compatibility issue. The radios probably won't work. See, LoveTech 47, I'm telling you, like, I upgraded the RAM in my laptop like a number of years ago, and I put 4 gigs of RAM, and that thing was flying. It came with 2 gigs of RAM. Essentially, I just doubled it. So I think it had two spots. So it was like 1 gig and 1 gig. So I had 2 gigs of RAM. I took out each of those and I put 2 gigs of RAM, the 2 gig of RAM sticks in each spot. So I went from 2 to 4, and it flew. So I had a desktop that I ran. I was in college. I was doing all my word processing, running all my programs. Uh, with 4 gigs of RAM, man. It was crazy. So now, like smartphones, if they have 4 gigs of RAM, it's like a snooze fest that doesn't impress anybody. Yeah, 4 gigs of RAM. Don't sleep on 4 gigs of RAM. It's not bad. It's just crazy to see a company like OnePlus 6 push, or the company OnePlus push the envelope and put 8 gigs of RAM into a smartphone. Like, what are you doing with your smartphone that requires 8 gigs of RAM? I mean, how many apps are you going to hold in place? How many intensive games are you going to play that need that much RAM? Tablet PC, okay. All right, Landon. So, uh, I've always liked HP computers. Uh, I don't know much about that particular model, the tablet PC. But yeah, I'm sure 4 gigs is plenty for that. I'm actually hoping the so this is 6 gigs of RAM, because if it has 6 gigs of RAM, um, processing power obviously improves, and then you could do more with the cameras. I'm really big on photography. I take tons of pictures and videos, high resolution videos. So I'd like to see that Google steps their game up. I mean, they're charging people 850 bucks for their phones. You know, you might as well get some extra RAM in there. I think 6 gigs of RAM will do the trick for them. Oh, so actually, let me ask you guys. So far, with all the phones that have come out, all the smartphones, what's the best smartphone out there right now? It could be something that you have and that you've tried, or it could just be, from what you've read and learned about all the different smartphones. What do you guys think is the most capable device out there, and what do you think is the best one? Landon, from what I hear, OnePlus is trying to work its way into carrier stores here in the US, which would be huge. If you can get into carrier stores in the US, you've got a chance to actually make a real dent in the mobile smartphone game. Because, like, if you take a company like Samsung and Apple, Apple has its own stores, yet and still, carriers still outsell Apple stores if you take the collective of all carriers. So take AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile. Take all their Apple phone sales, add them up, and they do more than Apple does. In terms of stores, like stores. I'm not talking online or any of that, just stores. So yeah, I mean, I'd say probably two-thirds of Americans are still, you know, upgrading and buying devices from their carrier. They're not going to Apple stores, right? They're not going to Samsung.com. They're not going to Google and buying phones at they're not really making a dent in the market. They're doing most of their upgrading through their carrier. It'd be huge if OnePlus got in there. Unfortunately, OnePlus, they don't use CDMA bands. They don't have all the full LTE capabilities that like Sprint and Verizon have been using. So you're pretty much locked into a GSM carrier. It's AT&T and T and T-Mobile only. Love Tech, you got the Asus Zenfone 5Z. Uh, what's the retail on that phone? Is that I forget where was that phone priced at? I don't know if that's like a high-end flagship type Asus or if that's one of those like high-end mid-rangers. You know what, Edward, you're right about iPhone. There's two things iPhones do really well. Number one is RAM management, and the operating system's obviously well optimized. And the other is, yeah, it's their memory speeds, like reading and writing speeds. They're excellent. Those are things that Apple does really really well. Their processors are great too. They're just really really efficient. They're really good. Very very fast. Their benchmark speeds are crazy, out of this world. Exynos version of the Note 8. I've heard some bad things about Exynos chips lately. I don't know if it's just this year, but I've been hearing that the Exynos variant for the Samsung Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus, they're getting super hot and really poor on battery life. So, I don't know. Yeah, Landon, that's true, but I'm saying, like, what's a boss phone right now? Like, which one do you consider to be like, most people would agree with you. This is the best thing out there right now. This thing is on a whole nother level, super powerful. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. AT&T is the best network in Puerto Rico. Uh, I looked at the coverage map for AT&T in Puerto Rico, and it seems to be pretty thorough. Looks pretty good. I remember reading that there were some issues during you know, the um, the weather disasters and whatnot. So, uh, that I'm sure that was really compromised at that time. 550 bucks. Yeah, that sounds like a flagship to me. 845 chip. Yep. 6 gigs of RAM in there. Nice. So that thing's like a champ, man. That thing's probably really, really fast, very snappy. How's the camera on that phone, Love Tech? I mean, with that type of a processor and stuff, that sensor's got a lot of potential. You know what? I meant to ask you guys, and I may have forgotten to do this in some form of a video, but what's the most important thing when it comes to smartphones for you guys? Is it camera? Is it speed? Is it LTE speeds? Is it the RAM management? How fast you can multitask? What do you guys look for? What's like your number one thing that you want from your smartphone? Like you don't negotiate this. It's like the most important thing to you. Is it the display? Is it the battery life? Or is it the premium build? You guys like, fancy designs and stuff like that. What's the most important thing to you guys in a smartphone? LoveTech 47, nice. Rival Samsung and Apple. And you're spending 550 bucks brand new to get similar performance to an $900 phone. That's awesome. Asus definitely has some really nice phones. Joe Martinez, it's all about display resolutions. So let me guess, you're like one of those pixel fanatics where like, Quad HD and 4K is a must. Wow. Landon, that's terrible, man. Wow. So until November? Sheesh. Edward, you're right about Puerto Rico having a small footprint, but I mean, it's not a wealthy nation. You wouldn't describe it as being on the bleeding edge of technology. So, infrastructure, that's a serious issue in most countries, especially islands, bro. I mean, you've got hardware installations, you've got fiber, you've got lines, everything's got to be installed. They have major, uh, serious weather patterns that could change things. All right, so it's not all, you know, roses and daffodils in places like that. Yeah, love tech. Performance is important. You never want to use a device that you just paid $800 for, or $600 for, or $700 for, or even 550. Say you spent 550, right? You don't want to pick it up and say, "Wow, this phone is really slow. I don't like the camera. The display could be better." Like you're not trying to spend that type of money, and then boom, it's like this isn't that good. I mean, if you're gonna spend good bucks, there shouldn't be many uh, negotiables, I guess. Yeah, Joe. Management of RAM is huge. Multitasking. You want to be able to throw whatever you want at your phone. You know, I don't know if any of you guys use like split screen or if you use multitasking, multi apps. But like if I had a device and my phone couldn't handle it, like that would be frustrating, for sure. Ooh, dual SIM is a must, huh? All right, I see you. Love tech, dual SIM. So dual SIM phones are cool, right? You can get a data only SIM, you can get a regular SIM, you could do two regular SIMs. It's pretty nice having that. I know a lot of people that travel use dual SIM phones. Because of battery life, actually I've always loved the Motorola phones. They've got huge batteries in them. Uh, I miss the days when phones had big batteries. Slim designs have really restricted how much battery size they could put. It's kind of frustrating. Man, that sucks. You know what's crazy, Landon? They're talking about 5G. Like there are parts of the US that are like lucky to get 3G. We're talking like 1 megabit per second is like a pipe dream, which is crazy. I'll complain about my connection. I'll complain about my LTE speeds, and they're like 15 megabits per second. Well, you could do pretty much anything you want with 15 megabits per second, but like we find ways to complain about stuff. So we are blessed to have, internet provisions and coverage that's reliable and fast. So Landon, I'm guessing you're talking about in Puerto Rico that has LTE advanced. Uh, when you say LTE advanced, we're pretty much just talking about like some type of MIMO technology and carrier aggregation of some sort, right? So that's just some network technologies, basically. I mean, that's what I'm assuming you're talking about. You know what, Edward? You mentioned Korea. Yeah, Korea has really, really fast speeds. I don't know how long you've been following the channel, but I did a video on international internet speeds, wireless carrier speeds, and yeah, Korea was really fast. Uh, they've got some of the highest average speeds across the world. Um, there's a couple of European nations too. Edward Alex. Actually, no, I don't watch Black Mirror on Netflix. I watch Narcos on Netflix. That's like my favorite. I love Narcos. I watched it from the first episode to the last. It's fantastic. Um, Mr. Robot. Love Mr. Robot. I don't know if anybody out there watches Narcos or Mr. Robot. Those are like my two favorite shows. In fact, I can't wait for the new seasons to come out. Those are great. I love those shows. Uh, the wife has me watching This Is Us, which is not that it's on Netflix or anything, but those are kind of the shows that I've been watching. Um, the This Is Us, that's kind of like, lovey-dovey family type show. But yeah, Narcos is great. Definitely not for young kids. So if there's anybody of the in the youth there, probably not for you. Mr. Robot's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool. Wow, Landon, you're saying that you're getting 2 megabits per second during the day. All right, so 2 megabits per second, man. That that sucks. Um, so like, is that the slowest during the day? So like, what would be your fastest speeds? Like, off peak times or whatnot. All right, Edward Alex, I'm gonna check it out, man. You got me. I'll check it out. Black Mirror it is. Uh, so it's about future tech. Okay. All right, I can get into that. You're saying I'm too old, Love Tech, or you're saying you're too old? I'm not that old, man. I mean, I'm old compared to a teenager, but I'm not that old. So, Love Tech, are you 47? All right, Love Tech, you're 43. I'm 34, so, you know. Yeah, my wife makes me watch the This Is Us. It's like our thing or whatever. Um, yeah, sometimes you got to do something you don't want to do. But she likes Narcos. She'll watch that with me, and she'll watch Mr. Robot with me also. Watch at least 5 episodes before judging it and saying no. Yeah, I could do that. Black Mirror. Make sure I watch that. The Ranch. Man, I remember X Files. That was a huge show when I was younger. People used to rush home back in the day to catch that show. So, for those of you that are too young to remember this, but we didn't always have DVR. Like, people had to record on VCR, and like, some people didn't even do that. So, like, they would rush home from work to try to catch the newest episode of X Files or whatever. It was pretty funny. Um, I remember me and my brother, trying to get home to catch the show, and it was on like the same time every week and stuff like that. It was cool. Remember the X Files? That signature sound, the music, the introduction. All right, so Edward Alex says, "Do you think Netflix is being used by a lot of T-Mobile users?" I would bet that most, like the highest percentage of users of Netflix on mobile devices is probably T-Mobile users. But like T-Mobile really, they really latched on to Netflix. They were like one of the first, um, early adopters of pushing Netflix, and it was like Netflix on us. They did that promo and stuff like that, so they've got that deal there. So yeah, absolutely. They probably are, the biggest pushers and users of Netflix. So Landon says off-peak times, so 3 a.m., you're getting 20 or 30. See, if in off-peak times at 2 and 3 in the morning, to only be getting 20 to 30 megabits, like, yeah, there's not much capacity there. If I was to run a speed test on my Verizon SIM at 3 in the morning at home, like say I'm just in my house, um, I would be getting like 70 megs per second. Um, and if I was closer to the site, I'd probably be getting more like 90 megabits per second for sure. Yeah, so unfortunately, you're not getting much capacity there. Wow, during the day, 2 megabits per second max. 2G speeds. Man, what can you do with 2G? Like, read a newspaper article? Seriously. That's terrible. Love Tech. I actually like stopped at a garage sale the other day, and dude was selling like 17 VCRs. It was crazy. He had like boxes of tapes and everything. For those of you that remember VHS tapes, they were like this big, and like as soon as they'd mess up, all the tape would come out and it would get all tangled. It was hilarious. Edward Alex asks, "Will Hulu be included to T-Mobile customers if the merger happens? Netflix for Sprint." Um, Interesting question. I say no to the Hulu for T-Mobile. I say yes to the Netflix for Sprint. I know that's kind of weird, but like, yeah, I don't know what that's gonna do for Hulu. It's possible that both of those things could happen. I'm not gonna say that it's not possible. I just feel like the Netflix is more important than the Hulu as one of those commodities that they're just tossing in. I don't know. Who knows? Everything connected with Sprint may kind of become over. It may just end. All the promos, the title deals. I mean, what's gonna happen to the title? That's like a new platform that's really being pushed through Sprint. Yeah, there's a trip down memory lane. VHS and VCRs. Man, I remember my grandparents had record player. I remember they had a rotary phone. That was crazy, man. A lot can change in lifetimes. Do you see them dropping them? Edward, you mean like dropping like the title and the Hulu? David Brown, welcome, my friend. So initially, I've been trying to do the live streams Friday afternoons. I was unable to get to the live stream today. Something came up, and I just couldn't get a situation where I could do the live stream. So I wanted to make sure I did it for you guys. So I better late than never. So here I am. I'm probably going to be closing out the live stream in about 15 minutes here, hit the 2 hour mark. So no, the time didn't change, David. It just for today. We're going to try to make sure we do it at the same time every week. We're going to shoot for 2 o'clock next week, Friday. So between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, the title and the Hulu. So I think with Sprint, in terms of the merger, I think it's likely that they're going to lose at least something. I don't know if it'll be Hulu or title or both, but I feel like in Sprint's case, because they're being acquired, right? It's like an acquisition. I don't view it as a merger, really. The only reason it's technically a merger is because Sprint still has a stake in it. But I feel like, you know what? Let me backtrack. Keep that. I think the title, I think the title service might not make it. I don't know if it's been a big enough point for Sprint to even want it to carry over. T-Mobile might say, "Well, we don't need that contract. Let's just get rid of it." Landon, do you have Arabic decency? I'm guessing you mean my descendants or my ancestry. Uh, yeah, actually, yes, yes. I'm. So my parents were born in Palestine, about 20 minutes outside of Jerusalem. I'm born and raised in the Cleveland area, so I'm technically Palestinian American. Yeah, David Brown. This will be, it'll be posted as soon as I'm done. It'll process it. I don't know how long it takes, but it'll be up so you can catch what you missed. Actually, because of the timing, I think that a lot of people didn't know what was going on, so there hasn't really been that much action up until like the last hour. The last 50 minutes have been pretty good. Title and Go 90, the same deal. You know what, David Brown? In terms of like popularity and usage, you're probably right. Now that sounds terrible because Go 90 is done. It's through. Verizon's getting rid of that. So that's not a good comparison to make if you're a title investor or if you're Jay-Z, I guess. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, title, people are using Spotify. People use Pandora. Both of those are the mainstays. Even Apple Music has really taken off. Title, just it hasn't been doing what they wanted it to do. Edward Alex is saying my new name is Bro. My students have called me that before. They're like, "What's up, bro?" Like, I never would have thought that would have been the case. When I was, uh, when I had teachers, I would like when I was in school, I would have never called my teacher a bro. But like in 2018, I think some teachers are just they like to be more relatable with their students. So I don't mind being a bro. I'm cool with that. All right, so David Brown is saying title's gonna end up just like Go 90. I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty bold claim. I mean, how old is Go 90? A couple years old. So you're basically implying, David, that title's gonna be done in 2 years. Landon, I actually teach high school. I've been teaching high school science for 8 years. I teach mostly life science, but I also teach environmental science. So I teach biology and the environmental sciences, ecology, and stuff like that. Yeah, I always called everybody Mr. and Mrs. I mean, that's most kids still use that. I did teach at a school when I was doing my student teaching about 9 years ago, and they just called me Mister. They didn't use my last name. They just called me Mister. It was kind of weird. Uh, I don't know if it's just the way that the culture of the school was, or if it was just kids being lazy. They just called me Mister, and they would call lady teachers Miss or Mrs. That was kind of strange, kind of weird. No more plastic straws? Did I miss something, David? I mean, or is what was that Starbucks? I think no more plastic straws. They I've read something somewhere recently in the news on that. Yep. Plastics. Plastics are a huge issue. I actually remember teaching a unit on plastics last semester. We've got some plastic islands in the Pacific. I mean, literally islands, instead of sand, it's made of plastic. So, yeah, it's rather unfortunate, pretty crazy. You know what, Landon? I've heard some people say nice things about Tidal, but I've heard some people say, I tried it, I didn't like it. I'm sticking with Spotify. I think Spotify's got something good for people. I think maybe the offline playlist people really like, the way that they scramble their artists and the songs. People just get used to something and they're not willing to try something new sometimes. Um, People are just used to it and they stick with that. Yeah, I don't see many ads for Tidal. I really don't. I think, you know, so Jay Z's kind of like the brain and the investment behind Tidal. He tried to make his newer albums exclusive to the platform. So if people wanted the Jay Z album, if people wanted the Kanye West album, they had to have a subscription to Tidal. and that kind of backfired. It didn't work. All it did was slow down his sales for him, his own music. So that ended pretty quick. Love Tech remembers when I had 100 subs. All right, so man, that was a big day when I hit 100 subs. 100 subs. That was probably about a year and a half ago. I mean, my channel's been up and running for about like, I don't know, 19 months or something like that. Uh, yeah, I started making my first videos. I wanted to do it for a long time, but I never really, I didn't really know how to execute it. And what I kind of, what I started doing was I jumped in and I just started making videos, and I got more comfortable with the process, and I got more comfortable about what I was doing. And I saw that more and more people were into what I was into. And once I saw that, I felt more free. And I kind of had this phobia about being in front of the camera initially. Like, not really a phobia, but I didn't feel the necessary, or I didn't feel the need to show myself on the camera. But then, like, I was like, well, how are people going to associate a person with the channel? So then I got the guts to do the live stream, and I did a podcast, and I put my, my face up here in the corner, and I think people have taken a liking to it. If you want to start a tiny, if you want to start something, a channel, Landon, go ahead, man. I would say just do it, because sometimes I think it's important to at least, if you have an idea and there's something you want to try, if you never try it, then like it's like a dream that never manifested itself. Even if you try it and it doesn't turn out as you liked, you're learning something from it, and it could lead to something else, which could lead to success, even if you don't succeed at that. Or maybe it's like a labor of love. Like you enjoy doing it so much, you don't care about the outcome, you just want to do it. So I would say go ahead, man, just do it. For those of you in the live chat right now, has anybody visited the Patreon page? I know David Brown's in on the Patreon page. Um, I'm not sure if anybody else has, but there are some videos on the Patreon page that are available to anybody. You can just visit the page, just go ahead and go to Patreon, search Steam Mobile Tech, and you'll see it on there. Um, just check it out. There's a couple videos on there that are just available to public. You don't even have to be a patron. Starting next week, all content uploaded to Patreon um, is going to have to be patron based. So, check it out. See if you like it. It's a $3 cost to get membership to the Patreon page, and the $3 covers the entire month. So everything that I make that goes on there, you have access to. Yeah, yeah. Patreon does have an app, Landon, definitely. So download the app, check it out. It's a really cool platform. It allows you to support your creators a little bit better than and in a different way than what YouTube does. YouTube only has AdSense. And to a smaller channel like myself, all the research, all the production, all the efforts that I put into it, without 1,000 subs, I haven't been monetized yet. I do have the view time. I don't have 1,000 subs, so I haven't been monetized. But I want to make exclusive content for that platform because I feel it's more creator friendly. So I want to give it a shot. I'm still going to make videos on here, but you're going to see my focus on Patreon. Definitely be pronounced. I really want to take off on Patreon and give that a shot. You know what, David Brown? I'm gonna catch up here in the chat. I don't like AT&T either. A lot of people, they say it's evil, it's horrible, and I know why. I see all the things in the news and stuff like that. But yeah, it's an interesting stock to own for sure. A lot of people, I mean, especially with the acquisition of Time Warner, they're being big on there. They're being big on AT&T stock, so I've seen that as well. Brian, cool. Welcome, man. I'm glad to see that you checked out the Patreon page. There's going to be a lot of good content on there moving forward. Stuff that's only on Patreon that doesn't make its way onto YouTube. So you guys will have access to all that unique and exclusive content. It's going to be some good stuff on there, and it's going to be more concentrated on carriers. And I'm also going to have some specialty videos there for like leaks and rumors and smartphone releases and stuff like that. I'm going to be definitely putting some good focus onto Patreon, so look forward to that. Landon, the Patreon is, it's a creator based platform. It's similar to YouTube, is that people is creating different things, but it's not just videos. You can do posts. You can have people just writing to a post. There's going to be some polls on there. And it's just to give exclusivity, like people to support their favorite creators, which on YouTube can be hard to do for smaller YouTube channels. Oh, Super Chat. Okay. Well, I'm not really sure what Super Chat is, Edward, but I'm interested in it. It's got the word super in it. It's going to be awesome, right? All right, Brian, you're asking about Chinese smartphone manufacturers. Huawei had the best chance, and it just didn't work out for them. They probably make some of the best smartphones coming out of China. I mean, they make powerful smartphones, great design. I just, it's unfortunate it didn't work out for them. Um, OnePlus is a company that makes awesome phones, and they haven't been banned yet. And I believe OnePlus is actually owned by Oppo, whatever, however it's pronounced. They make good phones too. Okay, so Super Chat, live donation sponsor. That's cool. Yeah, I'm into that. I mean, it's good to get support from your subscribers, and it's good to get support. I think it's just confirmation that people appreciate your efforts and what you're doing. Um, it's pretty nice to see that that feature is available to creators, definitely. Landon says, "Damn USA government, damn, damn." Yeah, I agree, David. The OnePlus devices are great. Uh, they make probably some of the best hardware for the money. Yeah, yeah. LoveTech, ZTE, big news from them. So we're gonna be seeing them pretty much operating back to normal. So David Brown, shout out to the FCC there. Man, I can't stand that guy, man. I can't stand that guy. He's the worst. I miss my net neutrality, man. I miss my free internet, free to roam, free to do as you please. I know California has been fighting it at the state level. It's good to see them holding on to that. So LoveTech, the reinstatement of ZT, that took a couple months. That was rough. I mean, they were pretty much they were in a stalemate. They couldn't run business operations. They couldn't, they've got partnership with Qualcomm, the Snapdragon processors that they needed. Uh, ZTE is slated to drop a 5G ready phone in quarter 1 of 2019. So hopefully that's going to continue to be the case. That might be a smartphone that I consider. I'm guessing that a ZTE 5G phone will be a lot cheaper than a Samsung Galaxy S10. So I'm definitely into that. So let's catch up, Edward here. ZTE was banned from operations in the U.S. Yeah, so we've got these issues with China, and the U.S. doesn't take nicely to what goes on in China when it comes to national security. So they were temporarily banned, but the ban has been lifted, and I've got a video on that coming up this week. And I think it's going to be in the podcast on Sunday. So Sunday podcast, ZT, one of the topics. $225 to file a complaint. Man, I was reading about that. So they were the FCC is like they wanted to initially change how the complaints are filed, and I guess now there's going to be a fee to handle the complaints. That's ridiculous. This is just crazy. What they're trying to do is they're trying to deter the complaints. They're trying to like reduce how many complaints go in. But like, how are you protecting people? You know, if you're going to be doing that. No, Edward, the ban's been lifted. So more details coming. So look forward to that. I'll definitely have a section on that. Um, LoveTech, you got the ZT Blade V8 Pro. I think, doesn't it have a 600 series processor? The Qualcomm Snapdragon 6, what is it, 625, 660, something like that? Oh, wait, it's the Pro, so that probably has an 800 series processor. 835, 845, something like that. Yeah, uh, yeah, that's true, David. Yeah, that's very true. So having those roots in Verizon, I think that's pretty much a dead giveaway of where the new FCC kind of stands. Uh, FCC leadership. You've got these five people, and three out of the five seem to be pro ISP, not so consumer friendly, which is bad. That means the majority is always siding with the ISPs. Yeah, it's all about lining the pockets. It's all about the dollar. Yeah, yeah, I love tech. I remember vaguely that phone when I was looking at some unlocked devices. I was looking for a device that had a 625 processor because of the battery efficiency being so good. So I was always looking for that, and I definitely considered that phone. No, I didn't hear that, Edward Alex. Um, I don't know. I try to keep up pretty good with the FCC news, so. Oh, Flyboy Rex. No, but there is an auction coming up. Glad you brought it up. There are two auctions in the pipeline for Spectrum, and specifically it's going to be 5G Spectrum. So I think one is in August or September, if I'm not mistaken, and then there's another one, and I don't know if it's in 2018. It might be towards the end of the year, but definitely by quarter one of 2019. So I'll be covering that in an upcoming video for sure. Landon Gonzalez asking about mid-range devices. I guess any phone running a 6 series Snapdragon, so like anything like with a Snapdragon 625. I hear the 660s are pretty good. They're powerful, but they're not as power efficient as like the 625 or the 630s. I hear the 625s are actually better than the 630s in battery life, so maybe considering a device with that. I know there's some Motorola's that have it, so maybe give that a whirl. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut this live stream. I've been on here for a couple hours. My bad on it being so late. I was supposed to, start the live stream around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I wasn't able to do it, so please accept my apologies. I'm really sorry about that. But next week, hopefully next Friday, the live stream will be at its normal time. I'll get it going between 2 and 3 p.m. So definitely be on the lookout for that. You guys are going to have the podcast this Sunday, so I'll have that for you guys. And hopefully there'll be a couple of updates on the channel for videos. I'll have some uploads during the week. And then please make sure, if you haven't done so already, visit the Patreon page. Just check it out. See if it's something you're interested in. I'd like to see if I can get more support there. I just want to get some traffic, some footprints there. Just go ahead and check it out. There's videos to watch. There's good content on there. So definitely take a look at that. And of course, definitely consider, joining the Patreon page and becoming a patron. But thank you guys for joining me here on the live stream. You guys are awesome. Thank you for your contributions to the YouTube channel. Much appreciated. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.